How many of us, I wonder, had difficulty waking up this morning? Maybe not even waking up, but getting out of bed this morning because it was so warm inside of our beds. And it was so cold out in the world. There's a metaphor there, by the way, not just a literal explanation. But how many of us were laying there? And then I wonder how many of us will now wander throughout the day just feeling like, I can't wait to get out of here, man. I just don't feel like I belong here. Oh, are you having trouble finding your meaning and your purpose in life? You mean it wasn't in your bed, underneath the warm covers? The purpose of your life, and if the meaning of your life was in your warm bed, I promise you, you would have found it by now. Because you spent a lot of time there, man. If the purpose and meaning of your life was in your comfort zone, your comfort areas, I promise you, you would have found it by now. But you haven't, because it's not there. It's somewhere out here amidst the struggle. What does the herd want? First off, what is a herd?
Group of followers.
Is it us? What?
I said a group of followers.
Group of followers. And who's the herd following? Who?
The alpha.
The alpha? So if there's an alpha, let's presume. But let's kind of look at this, though. What is the herd? Why would the herd follow anybody? What is the herd seeking? Why is it part of a herd?
Safety.
Guiding. Protection, safety. These are important for us to recognize. The thing that the herd wants is protection and safety. So, that being the case, what kind of morality does the herd follow? Give me some examples. So what are some things that, morally speaking, we follow because we're looking for protection and safety? Acceptance. We promote acceptance because we want to be accepted. So it's like, well, if I accept you, you'll accept me, right?
Oh, that's neutral.
Yeah. What else do we do? Because it's not a complicated question. It's not designed to trick you into anything. Yeah, what are some other things that we follow, morally speaking, because we're looking for protection and safety? Think obvious.
Popularity.
No, but I'm saying like moral things. We talked about making some kind of like a moral statement.
Oh, moral statement.
Yeah.
Not to hurt other members of the herd.
Not to what?
Not to hurt other members of the herd.
Yeah. So we want to say, so don't hurt others. So I say, don't hurt others, and we may kind of broaden as much as we necessarily. I mean, we could say physically, we could be mentally. So don't hurt others. Yeah. How else do we harm others?
Wait, how do we
Emotionally.
Is it?
Verbally.
Verbally. So we shouldn't be mean to other things. We shouldn't say naughty things towards each other. We should be nice to each other. Should we call people fat?
Yes.
Oh.
It depends if they're talking shit first.
Well, no, just as a descriptor. In other words, not as a name, not as a defense, not as an attack.
Then wouldn't that not be an insult?
That's what I'm asking you. Should we insult people? But by the way, it could be an insult, but it can also be true.
Yeah, that's what I was going on with. Is that really
Fat.
like, oh, you're just a fat person?
That's my point. How does this become an insult? If it's just a descriptor. Like I refer to the retarded kids next door, and people go, "You can't say that word." What am I supposed to say? Well, they're differently abled. Okay, what's their ability? Oh my God, Stan. You shouldn't say that. We should be more accepting towards others. I'm not saying I don't accept them. I love them as they are. You're the one who's trying to change them by calling them something other than what they are. What, you can't love them if they're retarded? You can only love them if they're differently abled? Sounds like the problem is with you and how you see people, not how people who describe them are. Yeah.
I think maybe, like how you said it, like when does it count as an insult? Maybe it's when it's used to hurt people.
So now there's something there about whether it's used to hurt people versus whether it does hurt people. So there's an intent versus versus an interpretational thing there. You follow?
Yeah.
So in other words, if I sit there and just go, man, you're retarded, I mean that to call you stupid, then that's intended to hurt. But if I'm using it as a descriptor, if someone says, oh, I don't like your shoes, Scallon, or whatever, you're fat. You're not really, maybe they are, maybe they're not, but you're just kind of saying that to someone because you're intending to fight back and to hurt them, to fire back and to hurt them. Okay, so maybe that's part of this thing about not hurting others. We might say don't hurt others intentionally. And that kind of goes back to something that Santiago was, I don't think he used the words, but they kind of multiplied through there, empathy and sympathy. A lot of times our morality is based off of these things here. We feel bad for others because we have been there before, so we can feel what they're feeling. Or maybe we haven't been there before, but we can sympathize with it. Maybe we can imagine ourselves being there in some way. So for example, like I've lost both of my parents. Well, I didn't lose my parents. I know where they are. They're just not alive. If you've lost a parent before, one or two, then you can empathize with that. If you haven't lost either of your parents, then maybe you can sympathize with that. You can feel bad for someone. You can't feel what they're feeling, but you can feel bad for them. And so sometimes we have laws that are based off of things like that, or forget laws, just like moral decisions based off of that. Why shouldn't we steal from people? Well, because that's stealing. Shit, it's a big circle. What's wrong with stealing? Well, when you steal, you take somebody else's stuff. Yeah, that's the nature of stealing, but what is exactly wrong with it? And this becomes that question about when it is that we're indoctrinated with this morality. Because remember, if you suffer from some kind of childhood trauma before the age of 5, it goes into your unconscious. It does not land in your long-term memories, which means you can't access it. You're not conscious of the thing that happened. If you got bitten by a dog when you were 1 year old, that you'll have a fear of dog. You may have a fear of dogs, of course, the rest of your life, as we were talking about last time. Now, what if you were, instead of being bitten by a dog, you had it drilled into your head, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. All of these things before the age of 5, that goes into your unconscious. And we just take it to be common sense. Well, why wouldn't you steal? Well, you wouldn't steal because stealing is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because you're taking somebody else's stuff. Right, what's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with it is that's wrong. And it becomes this big circle. And then when someone comes along, I don't know, like a teacher, and asks you, well, can you explain to me why that's wrong? Well, oh God, Scott, quit asking all these questions. Right, because we can't answer that question. The fact of the matter is that morality, generally speaking, that's exactly what it is. It's herd morality. Why? Because morality is for people who need protection and who need safety. I don't need your protection. I don't need your safety. I'm an individual. I can stand against the herd. Do I look like I need your sympathy? I understand it if you're weak, and I understand it if you're passive, and I understand it if you don't have the courage to stand up for yourself, and I understand it if you're not the smartest person in the world, or even in the top 6 billion. I understand why you would seek protection and safety from a group of people. But a group of people, that's all it exists for. It doesn't exist to make itself better. It doesn't exist to improve itself. It only exists to protect what it presently is. Now, why do you join that herd? Because you understand that what you presently are is not good enough. So, of course, you seek this. Absolutely. But don't ask the individual to respect you, because you're not an individual. You've given up your individuality. You've given up your own thinking. You've given up everything that makes you human so that you can lower yourself to an animal. Birds have to hang out in herds because that's safe for them. Animals out in the wild have to do this. There's a reason that we look at the wolf and we say, oh, it's the lone wolf. It's the lone wolf. Why? Because the wolf doesn't need the pack. It wanders by itself. It takes care of itself. And so, morality is exactly this. It's the herd protecting itself. You shouldn't attack, you should accept people. Why? What if there's something deeply wrong with you? What if you're somebody who is weak, and your weakness is now taxing my life because now you expect me to take care of you, which takes away from me becoming what I could possibly become. And you hear these things, but we get so much farther when we work together. Really? Name me something great that's been done by a group of people rather than an individual who commanded a group of people. Or an alpha, as you said Who led the civil rights movement in the United States?
Oh,
Martin Luther King Jr., yeah.
okay.
Who was the number 2 person?
Number 2.
Some black guy.
Yeah, some black guy. Could have been anybody. We don't know. Why? Because there's no monument that's been made to a committee. It was one guy who shows up at 27 years old, by the way, with an earned doctorate at 27 years old, who shows up and is just like, here's what we're going to do. And then the herd's like, okay. Why? Because the herd needed protection. The herd needed safety. Because the herd was fighting against another herd of people who were doing the exact same thing but in the other direction, trying to protect their own interests, trying to protect themselves, or what they thought were their own interests. But you've got this other person, by the way, on the other side, the individual. Over here you've got what you could think of as like the lower person, the lower human. And what does the lower human want? Yeah, protection, safety, but there's something else that the lower human wants as well. And this is the thing that's going to be the death of any of your achievement in life. What they're after is comfort.
Oh.
Comfort. They want to be comfortable. We don't want to have to face struggle. We don't want to have to face challenges. If we're part of a group, we have to face fewer challenges. We have to. I guess you could think of it like it's a bigger piece of bread, and therefore we have to taste less of the shit sandwich if we're part of a bigger herd. This is the benefit of it. You have a problem. There's now 100,000 of us, 1 million of us, 300 million of us, and all of us. We can get farther if we work together. You don't get farther, by the way. It just means you have to struggle less. And if you struggle less, that means you overcome less. That means you stay weak. That's what the herd's after, to maintain comfort. But then there's the individual on the other side. You can think of that person as like a super person, superhuman. Superman. Oh yeah, we'll call him Superman.
Yeah.
Nietzsche would call him something else. Nietzsche would call him the Übermensch.
Hmm.
German word.
Yeah. Uber, the Overmensch, the Overman, Superman, the Overman. This is the person who's entirely self-reliant, doesn't depend on the herd. This is the person who's able to face challenges. And by the way, if you're this person over here, think about what your friendships look like. Should I tell my friend that their hair looks like a rat's nest? No, I shouldn't tell my friend that. Why? Because then that excludes me from the herd. What if I need their protection and their safety? So instead, we lie to our friends. You have friends, maybe you're that person, I don't know. Probably, most of us are. But we all have friends who are doing things that are completely destroying their lives, completely ruining themselves. In fact, not even just that, but they're dragging down other people around us as well. And what do we say? Well, that's my friend, right or wrong, you're a coward. Because the only reason you won't condemn them is because you need their protection and you need their safety. You don't give a shit about them. They're not really a friend. A true friend stabs you in the front. Like, what you're doing is you're carving them up from behind. Maybe you'll tell people, I'm really worried about so-and-so. Why? They're doing all these things and they're dragging their family down. And then they walk in the room, hey, what's up, dog? How you doing, man? And then they'll leave. Man, I'm really worried about that person. And why won't you tell them? Well, I don't want to... you know what? You know what? It's because I'm accepting. And so then we frame our weak morality as somehow it's a virtue. No, I'm not a coward. I'm not feigning for protection and safety. No. I'm accepting of others. Oh, and the reason is because I have a value. My value is you should not hurt others. What if that person's hurting themselves with their own behavior? What if they're hurting people around them? I refer you back to my acceptance of who they are. And this is what it really is. It's not because we really want that. It's because we want this. We're afraid for ourselves because we find ourselves living in a chaotic world that's unpredictable. We don't believe enough in ourselves. If we believed in ourselves, we could be this person, a person who would stab their friends in the front because they care about them. This is the person who's willing to be an enemy to their friends because of love. Not because you want to go out there and pick fights with everybody, but because you're willing to be honest with them. And if they don't want honesty, then do you really want to surround yourself with people who want to be comforted with lies? Because what's going to happen is the herd has a way of absorbing people, bringing you into it. Because it's comfortable. It's comfortable. How many of us, I wonder, had difficulty waking up this morning? Maybe not even waking up, but getting out of bed this morning. Because it was so warm inside of our beds. It was so cold out in the world. There's a metaphor there, by the way, not just a literal explanation. But how many of us were laying there? And then I wonder how many of us will now wander throughout the day just feeling like, I can't wait to get out of here, man. I just don't feel like I belong here. Oh, are you having trouble finding your meaning and your purpose in life? You mean it wasn't in your bed, underneath the warm covers? If the purpose of your life and if the meaning of your life was in your warm bed, I promise you, you would have found it by now. Because you spent a lot of time there, man. If the purpose and meaning of your life was in your comfort zone, your comfort areas, I promise you, you would have found it by now. But you haven't, because it's not there. It's somewhere out here amidst the struggle. Now, we can numb ourselves in lots of ways. We can numb ourselves, we'll say like, so people will numb themselves with drugs and alcohol. True. But people will also numb themselves among the herd. Because at least, you know what? I don't have meaning and purpose, but you know what? At least I'm not alone. To be able to venture on your own takes courage. This is the person who develops their own value system. That doesn't mean they walk around and then they lie and they cheat and they steal because they can. This is the person who doesn't lie, who doesn't cheat, who doesn't steal because they choose not to. Over here, you don't get to make that choice. If you do that, you're kicked out of the herd. People still do it, but they do it. They hide it. This is the person who chooses not to do it. This is the strong individual. And so, of course, these folks hate these folks over here. You shouldn't call people those things. You shouldn't say those things. Sorry, who the hell are you to come along and tell me what I should and shouldn't say? It's because you thought so deeply about these ideas. You've given so much consideration to what's right and wrong. Man, you've never lived a day outside of the herd. And so you'll dress it up in pretty platitudes. You'll pretend like weakness is virtue. You'll pretend like you don't say mean things because you care about others, but actually you only care about yourself. You just don't have the courage to admit it. That's all morality is. It's herd instinct in the individual. It's a refusal to become what you could become out of fear. Fine. Just stay the hell out of the way of the people who are becoming what they could become. Quit trying to shame them, because the truth is they really don't give a shit about you, sheep. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy, it's Friday, Friday, gotta get down on Friday.
I'm gonna make sure that's on the video, bro. That's how it's gonna fade out.
Oh.